Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we journey back to 1876 to a small town in Minnesota where time itself seemed to stop. This is the true story of Northfield, the town that slept for 20 years after the day it refused to die. Northfield was an ordinary frontier town, one of those postcard-perfect American places with cobblestone streets, a bustling general store, and a bank that everyone trusted. It was a picture of tranquility, a community built on hard work and quiet days. But on September 7th, 1876, that calm was shattered by the thunderous sound of hooves. 8 men rode into town. They were strangers, clad in long duster coats that hid the pistols at their hips. Their eyes were cold, scanning every corner, every doorway. These weren't just any drifters. They were the James Unger Gang, the most feared and infamous outlaws in the entire Midwest. Led by the notorious Jesse James himself, they had carved a path of terror across the heartland, robbing trains, stagecoaches, and banks from Missouri all the way to Kansas. They were legends, whispered about in saloons and feared by lawmen everywhere. But Northfield was supposed to be their masterpiece, the one score that would cement their legacy forever. They had no idea they were riding into the one town that would fight back. It was just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the gang made their move. They rode up to the First National Bank of Northfield, their horses tense. 3 of them, including Frank James and Cole Younger, dismounted and pushed through the doors. Outside, the others stood guard, trying their best to look like casual passersby. But the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Inside the bank, they confronted the acting cashier, a man named Joseph Lee Haywood. They demanded he open the safe. But Haywood, with a steady nerve that defied belief, refused. He told them, "It's locked by time. I can't open it." The outlaws didn't believe him. They became enraged, striking him with their pistols and pressing a cold gun barrel to his head. Yet, with every threat, Haywood's answer remained the same. He wasn't lying. The bank had recently installed a brand new vault with a time lock, a cutting-edge piece of security for its day. It was literally impossible to open it before the designated time. Frustrated and furious, and with time running out, one of the outlaws made a fatal decision. As Haywood still refused to cooperate, a shot rang out, and the brave cashier fell. Meanwhile, outside on the street, the town's quiet afternoon was about to explode. A local hardware merchant named Jay Salin and a young medical student, Henry Wheeler, grew suspicious of the men loitering near the bank. Allen peeked inside and saw the robbery in progress. He bolted down the street, shouting the alarm that would ignite the town. "Get your guns, boys! They're robbing the bank." Those words were a spark in a tinderbox. Within seconds, the peaceful streets of Northfield transformed into a chaotic battlefield. This wasn't a town of trained soldiers. It was a town of ordinary people pushed to their limit. Farmers, shopkeepers, and clerks grabbed whatever rifles and shotguns they could find. A medical student fired from a second-story window. They took positions on rooftops, in doorways, and behind wagons. It was pure, unscripted defiance. The outlaws, who expected an easy score and a frightened populace, were suddenly caught in a deadly crossfire from every direction. The carefully planned robbery descended into a desperate fight for survival. 2 of the gang members were shot down before they could even reach their horses. The rest, bleeding and panicked, tried to mount a retreat, firing wildly as they galloped through the hail of bullets. They were hunted, cornered, and completely outmatched by the citizens' fury. The legendary James Younger gang, which had terrorized half the country, was being utterly routed. It was the first time in their notorious career that a town had dared to fight back, and they were paying a terrible price for underestimating the spirit of Northfield. When the smoke finally cleared and the echoes of gunfire faded, the cost was heavy. 2 brave townsmen lay dead. The heroic cashier, Joseph Haywood, and a recent Swedish immigrant named Nicholas Gustafsson, who was caught in the crossfire. But the bank stood tall, its vault untouched, a monument to their sacrifice. The outlaws who escaped were scattered, wounded, and relentlessly pursued. For Jesse James, the disastrous Northfield raid marked the beginning of the end. His reputation was shattered. He went into hiding, and within 6 years he would be betrayed and killed by a member of his own new, much smaller gang. The legend was over. But for Northfield, the trauma of that day ran deep. The memory of the violence lingered like a shadow. For the next 2 decades, the town closed its streets at sundown. The bank's front doors, riddled with bullet holes, remained boarded up for years, a stark reminder of the battle. Children grew up hearing the story not as a heroic tale, but as a cautionary bedtime warning. Locals would say that every September, when the autumn light hit the river just right. You could still hear the phantom echoes of gunfire, though. Lingering spirit of the day their town refused to fall. Today, however, Northfield remembers that day not with fear, but with immense pride. Every September, the town holds a festival called the Defeat of Jesse James Days. They reenact the battle in the very same streets where it happened. Actors in cowboy hats and long coats ride down Division Street. Shots are fired, Blanks. This time the crowd doesn't cheer for the famous outlaws. They cheer for the everyday heroes, the farmers, the shopkeepers, and the students who stood their ground. A plaque still hangs above the old bank building, its words simple and powerful. Defeat of the James Zunger Gang, September 7th, 1876. That single moment, when a small town stood up to America's most famous criminals, became one of the last true legends of the Wild West. It serves as a timeless reminder that history isn't always written by heroes or villains, but often by ordinary people who, when tested, simply refuse to give in. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the forgotten corners of history. We'll see you next time.